A quarterback who beat the GOAT in his first NFL start, making history, a running back who's looking to rise to relevance once again, and a wide receiver who's looking for redemption against a former team. This is a Rival Fantasy Podcast. Let's talk about it.
You are now listening to the Rival Fantasy Sports Podcast. Let's go.
We're talking about Week 15 waivers, and you know we got to start with the quarterbacks. It's all about Brock Purdy and Jared Goff. Simply put, that's all it's about. Brock Purdy, Jared Goff. They've had success lately. It's been fun to watch. It's been good to see. Obviously, Brock is a little more new to the game, but he did just beat the GOAT in his first NFL start. Jared Goff is a more familiar name. He's on a hot offense. It's taken off. He's behind it. He's leading it, and it's working. So these are the two waiver priorities I would have for you if you had a situation where maybe you lost a quarterback to a concussion. That seemed to be a trend last week. If you're in a situation like that, I know it's a little scary. You're in the fantasy playoffs, and you got to start Brock Purdy or Jared Goff. But hey, things could be worse. I'm actually pretty confident in these two. It's not every day that I'm confident in backup quarterbacks or quarterbacks that are lower tiered in general, but the offenses are good. These guys have been flourishing. Their coaches are really making it work for them. So I really like both of these guys if you need a quarterback to start. Again, I hope you're in a situation where your quarterbacks are healthy, that you've been starting all year. But if you're in a tough spot, these two quarterbacks are the two quarterbacks on waivers that I feel confident in saying, hey, you can pick these two up. And if you're in a jam, start them, and they can still help you get to the promised land. At running back, I have three names I want to throw at you. Zonovan Knight. Not mentioning Knight, really, at this point, I'm not going to tell you why. We're not going to talk about what he's done. We're not going to talk about his stats last week, because if you haven't added him yet, you haven't been listening to the Rival Fantasy Podcast. You're not listening to my advice. You should have added him 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whenever it was that he came and filled in, because I've been shouting it. And at this point, don't be the guy who picks up a guy after he's gone week after week and he's starting to have bigger and better games every single week. You're too late. I'm really only saying his name to let you know that when I mention it, I try to get ahead of it a little early. This way you can be ahead of it early. If you wait till this point in the season to add a guy like this, if he's somehow still available in your waivers, which is crazy if he is, because your entire league is sleeping if Zonovan Knight's still available. But that's fine. That's fine. If he's still available, pick him up. It's crazy. But don't wait this long next time, okay? Just don't do it. Jerick McKinnon may be available in your leagues as well. He's another guy who some people aren't very high on. They just don't get excited about him. He's not a household name. He's a guy who's been injured a lot in the past, but this is a guy on the Chiefs offense. Andy Reid is creative. Patrick Mahomes is talented. They're making video game plays out here. Jerick McKinnon has always been this guy. Okay, in case you're new to the Jerick McKinnon thing, he's been this guy. He's always been this guy. I've been a fan of him since he was on the Vikings. I was the guy in Dynasty Leagues who was stashing him forever, even while he was hurt, even while he was out for whole seasons. I refused to trade him back then. Jerick McKinnon is talented. The weapon that he is, he's finally flourishing once again. It's not just flashes. He's going to keep doing this the rest of the year. There's no reason for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes to stop, feeding this guy. He's perfect in this offense, and he's giving this offense exactly what it needs right now. So get Jerick McKinnon on your team and in your starting lineups if he's available. Last guy, J.K. Dobbins. This one is harder because he's probably not available in most cases because the smart manager who drafted him likely stashed him, right? When he got injured and was out for a while, unless they were in a jam or unless for some reason they lost hope and they released him. But if he was released, you should have picked him up back then even, because again, the Ravens can get that ball moving on offense and in the running game. J.K. Dobbins has proved he's the guy. And when he's healthy, he plays pretty damn well. He played well this game back. He sounds healthy. He looks healthy. He said that he's even better and more healthy, which is crazy if that happens. But again, if he's on waivers, scoop him up. You may be in a case where the smart manager stashed him the whole time and never let him be available to you. But those are my biggest running back ads for you in waivers this week. At wide receiver, get you some Detroit wide receivers. It could be St. Brown. He ain't on waivers. So now you have to turn to the next option. Neil, how do I get involved in this Detroit wide receivers group? It's DJ Chark. If you haven't added him already, I think we talked about him last week as well. It's Williams. If you haven't got him yet, we talked about him also last week. There's guys in this offense, and you're like, well, Neil, those are three different wide receivers you already mentioned right there. I know. But just like I mentioned Jared Goff, these guys can all get involved just like St. Brown. They've been involved. Jared Goff is getting it done. This offense is getting it done through the air as well. This is a good situation. You want to get a piece of this. I know, and again, those two, Chark and Williams, are more like your flex spots. Obviously, St. Brown is your starter straight up. I had faith in all these guys. So if you're in a jam, I think Williams is my least for sure on the list. For me, it goes if you want me to rank them, St. Brown, Chark, Williams. Isaiah Hodgins, another good option, stepping up through the wide receiver group injuries. The Giants need guys to get the ball to. Guys are getting hurt left and right in this offense. It is what it is. Hodgins has stepped up. He gets you touchdowns here and there. He's a guy that I'm not going to tell you, hey, you put Hodgins in your lineup, he's going to get you 150 yards, 10 receptions, 2 touchdowns. That's not happening, right? But I do feel fine saying, hey, he can get you 5 receptions, 50 yards, a touchdown. That offense needs it. He's available. He's healthy. So I like Hodgins if you need one. Patriots wide receivers, again, staying with groups. They play the Raiders. I don't need any other explanation. They play the Raiders secondary. The secondary that makes, wide receivers who you don't even know their name relevant. Patriot wide receivers are going to get busy. They have a real opportunity this week against the Raiders, especially with them playing Josh McDaniels, a former coach, a lot of former coaches there, former players there. There's going to be some, there's going to be some motivation here in this game for guys on both sides of the ball. And the last ones, just quick mentions of some guys: Elijah Moore, Peoples-Jones, Paris Campbell, Zay Jones, all honorable mentions. I'm putting them at honorable mentions because they just might not be available in your leagues. But if any of them are available in your leagues, get them on your team, please. At tight end, I like Dulcich. I like Ingram. I like Everett. Those are your best odds at guys that you can add if they're available. My priority would be Ingram, Dulcich, Everett. But I like all three. I think all three are useful for you at tight end. Tight end is this thing we've talked about it at this point every single week. It's up and down, up and down. Besides a couple of guys who are pretty consistent, it's up and down. Ingram is on fire. You definitely want to get him in your lineup if possible. Otherwise, Dulcich possibly. And then Everett is my last resort kind of option at waivers. Hopefully you can have one of those three if you need one really badly this week. Those are my 3 tight end waiver priorities. It's always fun to catch your league mates slipping, especially in the fantasy playoffs. There's no better time. 2 players that I want to mention here to catch your league mates slipping, who they're just not even acknowledging at this point. They're ignoring them. Chris Moore. If the Texans starting wide receivers are still hurt, this is a good opportunity. Moore is a good guy to bet on. If, the other guys are out, it just leaves, plenty of opportunity for him. He'll get it done. Again, he's not a guy that, you're going to make a first priority, but he's definitely a guy you can catch league mates slipping on, even if you just want to stash him, whatever the case may be. But he's someone you might want to get on your lineup. And then Pierre Strong Jr., again, playing the Raiders. There's going to be opportunities there to score if Stevenson is out. That's the caveat here. I'm not saying Pierre Strong in general, only if Stevenson is out, then I think he has a good chance to score against the Raiders this week. And that is it for the Week 15 waivers. If you have somebody else you have a question about, drop them in the comments below. I will definitely get to it for you. And this way I can help you out. If it's not a waiver thing, it's just a question, that's okay. Drop it there too. Bold prediction for Week 15. Bold prediction. What can you go with a bold prediction? I already know what I'm going with. It's Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack, my guy. Because even when the Colts drafted Jonathan Taylor, I was like, Marlon Mack's not just going to get pushed out of here. I had fights all over Twitter. They were trying to crush me. They were trying to kick me off Twitter for it. If Elon was around and owned Twitter, then he probably would have booted me. He would have thought I was a parody account. But Marlon Mack, I like Marlon Mack a lot. And I was just saying that he was just not going to get pushed out the way. I didn't say Jonathan Taylor wasn't going to play. I didn't say Jonathan Taylor wasn't going to become the guy. But I just said that season, Marlon Mack was still going to be a factor. It was a 50-50 split or something. Then he got hurt. And I, couldn't prove it out. But Marlon Mack this year is on the Broncos. Latavius Murray's there. That's it. Mike Boone's hurt again. Marlon Mack will be the leading scoring running back for the Broncos backfield in Week 15. Huh? Yeah, I like it. I like that bold prediction. Marlon Mack will be the leading running back in Denver this week. I like the sound of that. Return of the Mac. Let's go. The not so obvious lock for Week 15. A lot of people give you the obvious ones. Those are easy. Those are simple. I like to dedicate myself to one guy that I don't think is obvious, that I think is going to get you, 10 plus points. For me this week, if you're down bad at wide receiver, Nelson Aguilar is going to get you 10 plus points. It's versus his former team, the Raiders. One big play is all it takes for Nelson Aguilar to get 10 plus points. And the Raiders defense is super susceptible to those type of plays. We've seen it happen every single week. We've seen it happen last week versus the Rams, right? Like some of the guys catching the ball you may not have even heard of. And they were making plays out there with a quarterback who didn't even get to practice. He was just signed and was starting. The Raiders are susceptible to this kind of stuff. The Patriots know it. The Patriots are going to look to attack and beat the Raiders. They would just love to do that to Josh McDaniels. So I really like Nelson Aguilar this week as a not so obvious lock of the week. Guys, I love to interact with you. Drop your questions in the comments if you have lineup questions, start sit questions, waiver questions, trade questions, any questions you have about fantasy football. I want to help you get this championship. I want to help you advance in the playoffs. Go ahead and drop them in the comments. I will chop it up with you guys there. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. It helps us beat this algorithm. We need your support to do so. We want to grow the fantasy football community here on Rival, the fantasy community in general. If you love sports, Rival is the place for you. So leave, your comments here, but definitely hit us with a subscribe, share it with a friend or family member. Shout out to those listening on Apple and Spotify. Tap the subscribe button on there as well. You're no different than on YouTube. Please leave, hit subscribe on there. Leave us a 5-star review. Show your support. We appreciate it. You can always find us if you just want to talk to us outside of the podcast, outside of the YouTube show, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all at Rival Fantasy. That's where you find us. That's where we talk about it with you. That's where it's easy to connect, discuss, help you with questions, anything you may have, or just if you just want to see the content in more of a short form or different short form content that we have, go to those places. Don't forget, visit rivalfantasy.com. If you use the promo code RIVAL, you will get 100% loss protection up to $50 with your first deposit. Make that deposit. Add another layer of fun to when you're watching these games and you're watching, enjoying sports, when you have, challenges that are live, or you're playing fantasy bingo on Rival, or even if you're just using fantasy book where you're picking over unders on fantasy points, it adds this extra layer of enjoyment that you get to have. So not only do you get to see your team win, not only do you get your fantasy football team out here scoring tons of points, you're also winning money on rivalfantasy.com. So visit rivalfantasy.com, sign up, use the promo code RIVAL. That'll let them know I sent you. And you'll get that 100% loss protection up to $50 after your first deposit. That is it for this week, guys. I'm out. Good luck.